Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I guess let me just welcome everybody else in first before I get into introducing my lovely guest. Good morning, beautiful souls. Welcome to the Mindful Over Matters podcast, where we are curating and having conversations and sharing information surrounding intentional living. My name is Zaneta Ellison. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, life coach, author, and serial entrepreneur, but the mother of New Vision Behavioral Health. I'm repping. Okay, there it is. Repping one of the brands today. New Vision Behavioral Health is a group practice located in St. Pete, well, Florida and Texas, where we provide mental health and addiction counseling services to all ages. That was my baby. But today we are focused on mindful over matters. Mindful Over Matters was created out of what happened during the pandemic, and I had a totally different idea for that business, and I never did anything with it. Well, as I met Troy, he just kind of worked on me slowly about starting this podcast, and I really wanted to, but I was like, I don't really have the time. What am I going to talk about? I don't want to, I talk about heavy things all the time. I want something fun. But nevertheless, he worked on me and I said yes. And so we just go with the flow and see how this thing turns out. Um, we have a guest. We have a guest. I'm gonna let my guest just give us her name and then we'll move into further introductions later. But who are you?
Hi, and thank you so much, Zanita, for this honor. My name is Ortega Bryant. I met you at a forum at my church, Mount Zion Progressive, over in St. Pete, and you reached out to me to share my story. I'm 51 years old. I am a fashion copywriter for HSN. In addition to being a fashion copywriter, I model on air for them a few times a year. And I'm married. I live in Newport Richie. Um, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, so we're happy to have you. I love your bio, what you do for a living. I never heard of a fashion copywriter, so you might have to, like me and you might have to talk offline about what that looks like, and maybe you can help me with some of my fashion sense.
I got you. I got you. I promise.
Yes. Okay, great. So this month is the month of May, right? The month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental Health Awareness Month was identified for it's a worldwide recognition of recognizing those who live with mental health or mental health disorders every day and the families who support them. So just recognize that mental health is real and that there are people who are living each and every day with mental health disorders. And so today, we just want to talk a little bit about mental health. Um, I want to start with a few statistics. According to the National Alliance of Mental Health and Mental Illness, 22.8% of US adults experienced mental illness in 2021. That accounts for 57.8 million people in the world. This represents 1 in 5 adults. So if you go to work or you in the grocery store, 1 out of 5 of you have a mental health disorder.
Mm-hmm.
5.5% of US adults experienced serious mental illness in 2021. That equals up to 14.1 million people. This represents 1 in 20 adults. So in 2021, we saw an increase in people who are experiencing mental health disorders, anywhere from anxiety, depression, or others. 7.6% of US adults experience co-occurring substance use disorders and mental illness. That means not only do they have mental health, but they also are abusing or using some substance, whether it's alcohol, illicit drugs of any sort, or marijuana. That is 19.4 million people. Let me keep going. 33.5%
Mm-mm-mm.
of US adults with mental illness also experienced a substance use disorder in 2021. And that goes along with the co-occurring. Students, let's talk about our youth. ages 16 to 17, excuse me, with mental, emotional, or behavioral concerns are 3 times more likely to repeat a grade. I'll say that again. Students ages 16 to 17 with mental health disorders are 3 times more likely to repeat a grade. So a lot of times we see the schools or we see the academic professionals who are trying to address an academic issue, but not really paying attention to that. Maybe there's a mental health issue going on, and that child is untreated, that child is undiagnosed, and that child gets caught up in being retained without really addressing the real issue. But I won't get on that soapbox yet. Just one more stat. At least 8.4 million people in the US provide care to an adult with a mental or emotional health issue. So, not only are people dealing with mental health at record numbers, but more and more caregivers or family members are taking care of their loved ones who have a mental health disorder. And so I just want to have a conversation today around mental health. And I really wanted to feature, I see people with mental health disorders every day in my work, or just people who are just dealing with life stressors, may not even have a mental health disorder. But I wanted to have a conversation with someone who had some experience with mental health and for her to just share her story. And we'll just go from there. But before I get into your story, Ortiga, tell me, what does it mean to you to live intentionally? What does that mean? Because I say this is a podcast where we talk about intentional living, right? But what does that mean, or
Mhm.
what does that look like for you?
For me, intentional living is to live life to the fullest. Um, Try to live up to your purpose.
Mm,
Just to be more mindful. That's why I love the name of your podcast, Mindful Over Matters. Just being mindful over just the little things, to be appreciative. Sometimes we get so wrapped up into the more grandiose ideas, but to
mm,
be able to wake up and see the sunlight shining through the blinds, or to be able to hear birds chirping outside, or to hear cars driving by. We just need to be more take time to just be in the moment and just appreciate when
yes.
when I'm able to reach over and touch my husband's warm body, to know he's still here
Mm,
with me. So intentional living, to me, is just about making the most of life, out of life. The pandemic took so much from us, and so I even have even a more respect for life, because I've seen so many people leave us, and so
mm.
we do need to be intentional, because life is short. It used to it used to be here today, gone tomorrow, and now it's here today, gone today.
Wow. Yes. I love that. I love that beautiful picture you painted of intentionality, because it's just the small things to be able to say good morning, to be able to,
Mhm.
to even say, today was a rough day. Some people didn't get a chance to wake up and even have that to say. And so, yes, being able to appreciate those small things and identifying what living looks like for you. I love that.
Thank you.
So tell us, what is your relationship with mental health or mental illness?
Oh boy. So, um, I experienced childhood trauma, and I really, my husband was mortified to find out the amount of women that go through childhood trauma. Mental health covers so many layers. And
Mm,
you and I talked last night, and we'll get into eventually, there'll be more podcasts on more subjects, but we got childhood trauma. We have trauma dealing with us just being African Americans, dealing with racism every day. For me, my mental health issues stem from childhood trauma. um, but most recently, I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, depression, and anxiety back in 2021. Now, what I recently found out when I went to one of my last two therapy sessions, I found out that being diagnosed, my therapist told me, he said, even though you were diagnosed in your 50s, he said, this is something that didn't just start. He said, you do
Mhm.
not just wake up with mental health issues. He said, if you
Mhm.
think back, he said, you probably had some of these issues long time ago, and it's
Mhm.
just now you're being diagnosed. And when he said that, it hit me like a ton of bricks because he was exactly right. Some of the
Mm.
things that I'm doing now, it's not new. I was doing this back in my 20s in college. I did it in my 30s. I did it in my 40s. I'm just being diagnosed in my 50s. So people need to
Wow.
really, really, really realize that.
Wow, wow, wow. You said a lot of things that we would probably unpack. But Ortega said she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in her 50s. And for those of us, or those of you who may be watching and not sure what bipolar disorder, which was formerly called manic depression, is a mental health condition that causes extreme mood swings that include emotional highs, which are described as mania or hypomania, and very, very low lows, extreme depression. When you become depressed, you may feel sad or hopeless or lose interest or pleasure in most activities. When your mood shift to mania or hypomania, you have these extreme sense of, some people feel very grandiose or euphoric, full of energy, unusually irritable. And these mood swings can fluctuate at whatever pace they do. They affect your sleep, your energy, activity, your judgment, your behavior, and your ability to think clearly. So that is bipolar disorder. Ortega, you say you were diagnosed in your 50s, but you felt like your childhood trauma also created your mental health as well. Was there anyone else in your family that was diagnosed with mental health?
Um, Not diagnosed, but now that I'm in it, I can go back and recognize it. I have a sibling who I have a younger sibling who is diagnosed. She's diagnosed with schizophrenia. Um,
Okay.
my grandmother suffered from a mild dementia. But those are the two main ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. Yes, most of the time, for a lot of us who have mental health disorders, it's in our bloodline somewhere, and not in our blood, but that means that sometimes we are genetically predisposed for mental health because it is hereditary, somebody in our family. I was diagnosed, just a little story about me. I was what they call born depressed. My mom was severely depressed when she was pregnant with me. When she went into labor and delivery, she had an infection. Her grandmother was dying, and she couldn't see her for weeks because she was so ill. Um, and when she gave birth to me, I was the color blue, and the doctors told her that I would be depressed for the rest of my life, and they were
Wow.
right. Yes. And I remember, and she would tell me these stories, but I remember she said, I would come to you and you'd just be crying. And I'd say, what's wrong? And you would say, I don't know. She's like, and you were always sad, always crying. And I remember
Mm-mm-mm.
experiencing that, but I didn't realize that my mom had depression. My mom also had anxiety, that there are other people in my family who also had mental health, but they just kept going, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
we never noticed it. It wasn't a thing. We didn't talk about it. But now when I look back, I'm like, wow, like no wonder why I have some of these, because I see the traits and the
Mm-hmm.
symptoms in other family members. So yes, a lot of times if we have a mental health disorder, you go back down that family tree, somebody else
Yes.
does as well.
And we
Yes, for sure.
and like you said, we keep going, and that is another something else that I just learned recently or discovered recently, and I did a Facebook post about it, about normalizing suffering. We just
Ooh,
live in it, and we just live through it, and we
yeah,
don't address it. And
yes.
it's an issue. And so in the video that I shared, when I went to my therapist, and again, I commend your profession, because I can't even imagine you all carrying the weight of listening to everyone else's problems, and then I'm pretty sure having your own problems. So I just honestly, now that I'm in it, I have a newfound respect for what you do, and thank you for all that you do.
Oh,
Um,
thank you so much. I appreciate that. I
oh
like to say
yeah,
we
I
are
can't even
frontline
imagine.
workers. Yes,
I can't even
absolutely.
imagine. So
Thank you.
we're pouring our stuff on you guys, and so I went to my therapist, and he told me when I for my childhood trauma, it led to be me being promiscuous. Um, I was looking for love in all the wrong places.
Hmm.
When I first started dating my husband, he found a book that I had written everything down in. I'm talking about all kinds of encounters. So you can imagine how devastated he was when he found it.
Mm.
I at one point I wish he hadn't found it,
Hmm.
but at the same time, I'm glad he found it because he still loved me after he knew. This
Wow.
man loved me enough to go with me to therapy. And my counselor asked me, she said, Ortega, she said, I had books and books and books, Anita, books and books and books of encounters. And she said, Ortega, why are you carrying this with you? And I'm
Mm.
talking about the 90s. This me and I met my husband in 2013. So I carried that with me. And she asked
Hmm.
me, she said, why are you carrying this with you? And she said,
Wow.
you need to release this. And I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. What did that symbolize, though, Ortega? What did carrying these books of encounters and experiences symbolize for you? What were you really carrying?
I do not know. I felt like, because I'm a journalist by profession, and so I don't know. I just write everything down. I want to keep an archive of everything. I don't know what's in me that makes me do that, but she told me. She said, as long as you're carrying this stuff around, she said it's weighing you down. You need to leave that where it was, and you need to start fresh in your new
Yes.
relationship, and so one
Hmm.
of my homework was to get rid of the books. And so
Wow.
Zaneta,
Can I?
me and my husband, go ahead.
No, no, I want you to finish your story, but I want to add to that because I heard you. I heard you and I heard your therapist saying that carrying those books was a weight you were carrying. But I almost feel like I could see it as it was a coping mechanism for you because releasing those encounters, I don't know how you could carry those encounters as a secret, meaning I keep it all in. And I saw you writing it down because we use bibliotherapy or journaling as a form of self-expression to get out what's here or what's here onto paper so you don't have to carry it inside. And so to me, I could see how that just kind of helped you unpack what you did or what you experienced and move on until the next experience. To me, I saw it as you
Hmm.
unpacking. You unpacked it on
Really?
paper, yeah, because you were taking it out, you didn't hold it in. It was your secret, but not really because you were having your own form of releasing this stuff. So that way you had the capacity to go on and do everything else you accomplished despite your mental health, despite your
Right.
encounters. Yeah. So to
Yeah.
me, it was
Hmm.
a coping strategy to help you get through life up until present to where, hey, maybe it didn't need to serve you anymore. It wasn't serving you anymore. You no longer needed that coping strategy because now you have awareness to move towards
Hmm.
intentional living and wellness.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Don't make
Yes.
me preach,
Yes. And so,
Ortega. Okay, okay,
okay.
okay.
Okay. But you are exactly right. It served its purpose, and it was time to move on from that. I was no longer
Yeah,
that person. I had grown so much more spiritually.
good.
And so me and Larry sat down. I got a big crab bucket. I threw all those journals in that bucket. We sat in the driveway in our folding chairs, got a big lighter, striked it, a big match, striked it, and just threw it into the pot. And we literally have pictures of me sitting there and watching all of that burn.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
so it was so freeing.
I can
So
imagine.
from that point, I knew how much he loved me to know all the stuff I had done. And so from that point, got married and all that stuff. But anyway, so my therapist helped me so my newer therapist helped me realize that I had started this a long time ago. None of this was new. And
Yes.
so I did not realize that I had mental health issues um until I just started doing just crazy stuff. Um One of the things I would do was sleep a lot. I was on the spectrum. I would either sleep a lot or couldn't sleep enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I would get up like 3 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
tear the house up, tear the house up, pulling, just busy doing nothing,
Mm.
rearranging stuff, purchasing stuff, being racing thoughts. Like right now in front of my computer, in my on my computer, I have the symptoms up on my screen, bipolar 2 signs and symptoms. And
Mm.
when I read them, it's chilling. It's chilling
Mm.
because when I
Why do
was
you say
diagnosed,
that?
because I was in it and didn't know it. Okay,
Mm.
so let's see. Excessive spending. To me, I thought I was being normal because I loved it. But this excessive spending was way beyond what I had ever done. Um, it says flying quickly from one idea to the next. My
Mm.
thoughts were all over the place. I would try to lay down at night, Zanita, and my mind, I couldn't even, my brain wouldn't even relax because I
Yeah.
have all these thoughts running through my head. And so 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting up and I'm running around the house doing stuff. It was just insane. Um, Making and pursuing grandiose, unrealistic plans.
Mm-hmm.
For my 50th birthday, I threw a party that I can't even describe. I spent thousands on my 50th birthday party. I purchased
Wow.
my husband a vehicle for my birthday. He didn't ask for it. I went behind his back and purchased him a vehicle. That was not normal. It
Yeah.
was not normal.
Yeah. What? Wow.
So
Would you?
yeah, so I learned a lot. I
Would you?
learned a lot.
Wow, wow, wow. Ortega, would you say that even if you like rewind back to childhood or adolescence or as a teen, some of your promiscuity, would you
Hmm.
say that maybe that was a part of it? Like because that's pretty common with teens with bipolar disorder. Some of them even outside of sexual abuse, some of them can be very, have self-destructive behaviors such as having a lot of partners they don't even know. So a lot of high risk behaviors, high risk sexual experiences. Would you say that maybe even that was a part
Hmm.
of a layer of your bipolar disorder or a symptom?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Zanita, not only did I put myself in harm's way by having one night stands with
Mhm.
strangers, and I'll be completely honest about it because I can a testimony. I'm not here to portray um something that I wasn't. It was a part of my past who made me who I am today. So not
Yes.
only was it, several partners, there was also a layer of putting myself in harm's way by alcohol abuse. I had and at times drinking problems where I just don't know when to stop. And so
Mm.
I have gotten behind the wheel of a car and literally drove myself home. And then the next day, I'll call some friends and say, "Oh, which one of you drove me home?" And they're like,
Mm.
you drove your own self home.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I could, Zanita, I should have been gone so many times.
Mm-hmm.
But by his grace and mercy, I'm still
Yes.
here. So obviously there's a purpose. Like you said, you didn't, you was trying to you were looking for someone, a regular person who looked like they had it all together and who went through mental health. And I am the poster child for what you were
We
looking for.
are we are the
We
poster
are.
children. We are
Yes,
not alone.
ma'am.
There are many of us, but the fact that we can be honest and transparent about our story, we turn our pain into passion and sometimes our passion into profit, then it's all for our good. And this is your story. This is your story unapologetically, and the way that it can impact the lives of other people who may be just running around making decisions that they don't even know why. And mental health may be the last thing they think it is. And
Right,
so
right.
I'm just so honored.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm so glad that you are able to tell your story, and you covered some of the questions I had because I wanted to know what life was like before you were diagnosed. I wanted to know how your family responded. Thank God you had a husband who was supportive,
Ooh.
who knew how to meet you where you were, and who knew how to support your journey into wellness. The fact that he read those encounters, didn't get in his feelings, didn't get in his ego, didn't make it about him, but he saw you and and wanted to support you being the best version of you.
Hmm,
Yeah, that's
hmm.
important because when we on this mental health journey, it is not an easy thing to do alone. Sometimes our isolation, like it feels, we prefer to isolate, right? Because it may even
Hmm,
seem
hmm.
safer, right? But our
Right,
secrets
right.
keep us sick. Our secrets keep us
Hmm.
sick. And so, how
Yes.
would you how would you say you manage your mental health symptoms now? Like, what does that look like for you?
Um, for me, I have to stay obviously prayed up. Um, but more importantly, I need to be more mindful of my conduct. What I need to be more mindful of, I slow myself down and I think of not, but I have to think about what I'm saying before I say it. In with my words, and I offended so many people. And so now I try to be intentional about thinking
Mm-hmm.
about things before I say them. Um,
Hmm.
when my doctor told me that I was bipolar, it shook me to my core because I never wanted that word associated with me. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
bipolar? What do you mean? I
Mm-hmm.
was so devastated, Zanita. I can't even begin to just, I'm like, eh, to me, bipolar, and I hate to use the word crazy, but I'm like, wow, I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but that honestly was devastating to me. Here I
Yeah.
am on the cusp of, turning into this beautiful golden age of 50. I'm
Mm.
living in a beautiful home, beautiful marriage. It looks like I have everything together, but in inside, I was tore up from the floor up. And
Mm.
so,
Yeah.
I the panel that I was on with you at church, I was invited by Jewel Murphy, and Jewel Murphy reached out to me because I was transparent about it online. Um, I always say revealing is healing. I never want to hold anything back that can help someone else. And so that's why we're here.
Wonderful. Wow, wow, wow. You said a lot. I love some of the things you said. And we're gonna get into that after our short break, featuring our artist that we what is it, our blast artist of the day. We're going to have a short break and feature him, and then we'll move back into the rest of our segment. But you said you were honest, you were self-aware, you were transparent, and those things are key to our journey of moving into intentional living. And so we'll get into that. So now let's take a short break for our blast artist of the day.
Yes, indeed. Our blast artist of the day is my man Elijah Rosario, and this is called Best of Me.
Say what's on your mind, tell it like it is. Is there something in your heart wanting part in it? If that's the case, then girl, just say so. Games, I ain't tryna play those. Know you protective of your heart. Know you healing from the scar. Well, how about tonight we just put all our worries aside? Take advantage of this moment. Hold me tight, I'm talking close. I've been seeing clearly lately. Ain't no guarantees, just maybes. One thing that I'm certain of, I can't live without your touch, no. Kiss me like the first time that we met. Love me like we'll never love again. I'll save you every time before myself. Don't want nobody else. Give you the best of me. I know you ain't need a feeling, not just talking sexually. You like the dance in the mirror, you do it so graciously. I feel like nothing else matters when you laying next to me. When you laying next to me, give you the best of me. I know you ain't need a feeling, not just talking sexually. You like the dance in the mirror, you do it so graciously. I feel like nothing else matters when you laying next to me. I'll give you the best of me.
Don't wanna waste no time. You know a good girl's really hard to find. You've been heavy on my mind. Boy talk is cheap, better wait in line. Love the way I move to the baseline, waistline. Bad girl, not only on FaceTime. You know true love really takes time. Takes time, can't find a love if you ain't mine, no. Watch me wind it slow. Watch you lose control. Just wanna let you know this is how the thing goes. Make him spend 6 figures on the bling. African bad girl deserve the finer things. Private jets, baguettes, and diamond rings. Summertime drop top money ain't a thing like what it seemed like.
Kiss me like the first time that we met. Love me like we'll never love again. I'll save you every time before myself. Don't want nobody else. Give you the best of me. I know you ain't need a feeling, not just talking sexually. You like the dance in the mirror, you do it so graciously. I feel like nothing else matters when you laying next to me. When you laying next to me, give you the best of me. I know you ain't need a feeling, not just talking sexually. You like the dance in the mirror, you do it so graciously. I feel like nothing else matters when you laying next to me. I'll give you the best of me.
Alrighty, and that was Elijah Rosario with Best of Me. And if you, thank you. And if you are an independent artist or even a spoken word poet or up and coming comedian that is looking for some exposure, you can go to blastmusic247.com and register for free. That's blastmusic247.com. Changing the industry one artist at a time. All right, ladies, back to y'all.
All right. Thank you. Listen, can you hear me
Thank
okay? My
you.
headphones died. You hear me
Yeah,
okay,
I can hear you
Ortega?
fine. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna keep it moving. So listen, before we step back in to finish out this segment, I want to go over some of the comments. We have artist known as Lena. Hey, Miss Lena. She said, "Good morning, Zaneta and Ortega. Happy debut show, Doc. Thank you. I'm not a doctor yet. One day
Thank
it's coming.
you.
Yes. Um, Miss Dana Roberts said she's so proud of you. Admission is hard to make it. Admission is hard, and to make it public is extremely difficult. So true. Yes.
That's my
So,
sister.
oh, okay. Okay. Hey, sis. Yes, yes, yes. And then Evangelist Jones said, "This is incredible. So proud of you, Ortega. Thank you, Doc, for this platform." Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a claim this doctor stuff. People call me doctor everywhere I go. And I'm like, no, I correct them all the time
Everybody
because
keep thinking you're a doctor. Yeah.
I know. And I'm like, I didn't earn that yet, but it has given me the momentum to pursue it. So in the next 5 years, y'all can call me doctor. But in the meantime, just call me Zaneta. Anyway, okay. So I was asking you about how you manage your symptoms. Um, did you decide to go medication route? I know you have a therapist.
Hmm. I'm on medication for anxiety and depression. And
Okay.
then I also go to therapy. I
Okay.
also journal. I do all of those things.
Yes. Ortega, would you say getting on medication was hard for you? I'll be honest. So I was in denial about my mental health. I just knew I had these mood swings. But
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm a therapist. I help everybody else get well. Like, how dare I be sick, right? And
Right.
mhm. And so I remember I was in a very, very low point. I remember my depression just feeling so heavy that I had to, my doctor had actually my therapist had actually recommended I get on medication. I was just like,
Oh, wow.
so I decided to do it, found me a psychiatrist. And I remember I was talking to a friend of mine, and she happened to be a social worker, which was so odd. But I was telling her about me going to see a psychiatrist. And when I tell you she tried to rebuke every devil she thought was in me when I told her I was going to get a psychiatrist. I'm like, listen, you can feel however you want to, but in the meantime, I'm going to get these meds because
I know
I
that's right.
yes, I had to live with me. Nobody was living in that experience with me. And my depression was affecting my work, it was affecting my relationships. I wasn't showing up as a healthy mother. And I was like, Zaneta, your ego and pride is going to ruin your life. And so I
Say it,
had to make
sis.
yes, I had to make a tough decision to swallow my ego and pride, practice what I was preaching to my clients, and actually go take care of myself. And so
Come
medication,
on.
it wasn't easy. And so that's why I wanted to know, what was that like for you to finally accept the diagnosis and then accept the fact that I may have to be on medication for the rest of my life?
Oh, wow. It was jarring. I was like, I'm on mental health medication. I'm really about to take these pills.
Mm,
And to be honest with you, I can tell when I don't take them. So
tell
I
me
know
about
they're
that.
working.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's so funny. I just went on a little tangent yesterday with my sister, going off
Mhm.
about something, and she looked at me and she said, "Did you get your medicine?" I was like, "Not yet, but I will." And so I don't know. It's it helps me to relax down. It helps me to take my time and not be so on edge all the time and quick to fire off. And when
Mhm.
I take them, I'm way better than when I don't. A lot of people don't take their medication, and that in the manic episodes. And
Yeah.
so before we get off of the podcast, I would like for you to speak to manic episodes because I am so new to dealing with all of this. When I hear the word mania and manic, uh, it was new to me and I didn't understand what a manic episode was. And I would really love for you to explain that so everyone can understand what that looks like. But yeah, I've had manic episodes and I didn't know what it
Yeah.
was. And so if you can please help us understand that, um, I would really love for you to do that. Please stop. Oh, I'm sorry,
Sure.
Zaneta.
I mean, sure. So mania is an extreme high, right? Like it's this euphoric feeling. It's not the average feeling that a person has with their everyday life, but it's this extreme sense of just feeling, some people call it good, right? Um, it looks differently for everybody. Some people, when they're manic, they can become psychotic. Some people, that means they may see things or hear things that's not in reality. Some people may become very grandiose, like they think they can do all these great things. Like they may go um, on shopping sprees. Some of them may go to where like they want to take on all these different assignments. They want to do all these different things depending on that person and what they find pleasure in. So whatever they find pleasure in, they have this extreme pleasure seeking moment or this extreme pleasure seeking season. For some people, their mania can last for weeks or for months. Some people, when they experience mania, they don't sleep. They don't need to sleep. They can literally run off of whatever hormones or chemicals their brains are producing. So it's a neurological thing too. Their brains are working overtime to just keep them just up and doing whatever it is that they're seeking at that time.
Okay.
Um,
That was
so
me.
just so everything in excess, basically. Whatever they do,
That was
normally
me.
excess. Yep. Yep. I watched a
You
special.
you go overboard. You go overboard.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I watched a special of a lady. She was a mother, a wife, and she was an Olympic. Was she a swimmer or something? I don't know. But when she was manic by night, she would get on a plane and she would go to Vegas and she would basically prostitute herself. Like she would be like a call girl and she would have all these sexual experiences.
Wow.
And then she would come back home and live her life every day. And her family didn't know it. But this is what she would do during her mania. And it wasn't until I don't know what happened to her. Something happened to her that stopped her in her tracks and required her to look at what was going on. And they diagnosed her with bipolar disorder, but she has struggled with mania, and that's what she would do
Wow.
during her. Yeah, yep. So it will almost cause you to feel like you live in a double life in some areas and in some ways.
Wow.
Yes.
Let me tell you what I did to my husband. I really I feel so sorry for my baby sometimes. Girl, I took my husband. I wanted some new furniture. Nothing was wrong with what we had. Nothing. And I took him to the furniture store and I asked, could I have this particular set? He said, no. Let me think about it. No, he said no. He said, no, not right now. That's what he said. Well, me being me at that time and wanting what I want, I went behind his back and got it anyway. Zaneta, if you could have seen the look on my husband's face when our ring doorbell alarm went off, he opens the front door and the delivery men are here to set it up.
Mm.
I when my husband woke up, I had took the old set, pushed it into the living room, into it was a family room set. I took the family room set, pushed it into the living room to make room for the new family room set being able to get. Nothing
Wow.
was wrong. And I have a picture right away. My
You're breaking up really bad, Ortega.
husband, my husband watching the men as they set up the new furniture set, and the look on his face, it was unbelievable. I didn't get it. I disgusted, and now that I look back, I'm like, wow. I just realized his whole life. He would go get in he would open up his trunk, and I got so bad. I had stuff in my car instead of high car. I got stuff coming from Amazon. I work for HSN. I got stuff from HSN. I got stuff from Home Goods. Excessive spending was not even. That was putting it lightly.
Wow.
I'm so glad to know that there was something wrong with me.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You break it. Oh, I'm sorry. You're breaking up really bad. And so if I'm talking over you, I think Ortega. Ortega, you're breaking up really bad, but I want to speak to your point, and hopefully your Wi-Fi will clear up by then. Um, I heard you say, "Thank God that there was something wrong with me," quote unquote. Because imagine just living that way every day and not knowing why, never even being able to address the why. And so people say, "Oh, I don't want to label, or I don't want to be diagnosed," but I'm thinking, you know wouldn't you want them to find the root of the problem? How many times do we go to a doctor or we have this ailment? Do we tell the doctor, just ignore it? Just ignore it. I know I'm in pain. I know my life has changed. Just ignore it. No. When we have physical pain, we want to get to the root of our physical pain. But what about when we have mental pain or emotional distress, or when we see our lives falling apart around us? Don't we want to get to the root of that too? And so, yes, thank God they were able to put a label or a finger on what was really going on. So you knew how to treat.
I was so grateful. Yes. I was so glad to know that this is a thing. I'm not just out of my literal domain to know that there is a reason why I'm doing. It was so, even though it hurt, I felt liberated and free. It was freeing to know, wow, now I know what the problem is and it could be addressed so I can start healing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I tell people, don't run from the diagnosis. Okay, get the diagnosis, forget it. What we're going to pay attention to are the symptoms and what's going on and how to treat it. Getting a diagnosis just gives the doctors or whatever professionals a good idea of what direction to move in order to help you get to more healthier, sustained living. That's what we care about. Yes, great point. And so, as we get to the closing, as we talked about, there are millions of people who suffer or who live with mental illness all across the world. Whether they're struggling with the diet. Oh, I think he's still talking. I'm sorry, we're talking over each other. It's just delay and then something going on with our Wi-Fi. But whether you were struggling with a diagnosis of mental health or some type of emotional distress or whatever emotional heaviness, there is still a way for us to live and live well. And so we want to close this out talking about how do we still live well despite whatever emotional or mental distress we may find ourselves into. So there's something called what we call positive mental well-being. Positive mental well-being comprises of our ability to manage stressors, to problem solve and face adversity without folding. The foundation of positive psychology is to create a life of balance and life activities that create psychological resilience. That means no matter where I am, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what emotional distress or trials I may find myself in, there's a way for me to create emotional balance. So, what does that look like? Part of the work we do when I work with my clients who may have bipolar disorder or any other mental health disorder is helping them to self-regulate. I would say, how do you keep you in check? How do you manage your own emotions? But before we could do that, they have to become self-aware. Just like you did, Ortega, when you were paying attention to the things you were doing, the behaviors you had, the way you felt. Self-awareness is important for us to make any changes in our life, any. So it's important that you understand, you know what? I noticed that I'm not sleeping. I noticed that I'm eating more or I'm eating less. I noticed that my relationships are suffering. I'm drinking daily to cope. Whatever you notice about you that you realize this isn't normal for me, for anyone, or this isn't the way I want to live, that's the first step in moving towards wellness. So self-awareness. 2, seek support. Having that professional support there, someone who can put professional or medical eyes on you, can sort through the things you're saying, can hear the symptoms and say, yes, we know what this is that. And so having that professional support, seeking professional help, whether it's a therapist, a psychiatrist, start with your primary care doctor. They know how to recognize when mental health is showing up. Family and friends. You talked about, Ortega, your husband, the way he was able to support you. who knows what your life could have looked like or how long it could have took you to get to the point of wellness if your husband wasn't supportive. If you had a husband who was anti-mental health, who was like, oh no, you got a problem, who just didn't see it, then that could have delayed your process of healing. And so having supportive friends and families, spirituality. I'm a spiritual person. I'm a believer. So a lot of us may be able to tap into our spiritual beliefs to help support us, to help us, whether it's for wisdom or it's for encouragement, to take those courageous steps of seeking support. Tap into your spirituality. The third is, I say, be aware of negative thoughts and irrational thinking. Okay. I always say our thoughts turn into emotions and our emotions turn into behaviors. So sometimes we can think ourselves into anxiety. Sometimes we can think ourselves into a depressive state. And so I'm always encouraging others and including myself to be mindful of the language of your mind. What are your thoughts saying? Are you entertaining thoughts that are destructive? Are you entertaining thoughts that are irrational? Oh, nobody cares about me. Nobody understands. Those thoughts will put us in a funk and will cause us to show up funky. Okay.
That's
And so
right.
be aware of
That's
your
right.
thinking. Yes. And then lastly, not lastly, but create environments that support wellness. Are we putting ourselves in situations we have no business being in? Are we becoming a savior to everybody, but won't save ourselves? And so, what are the things we're doing that are creating environments that are either keeping us stuck or supporting our wellness? Are there routines, rituals, strategies, or skills that you use to help you just stay balanced? We as women, we like, hair done, nails done, but what things are we doing to build our internal self? What are we doing? Is it prayer?
Come
Is it
on. Come on.
is it yoga? Are we creating environments of wellness? Are we in everybody's business? Are we running here, there, and everywhere? Are we trying to support and save everybody? Are we seeking 16 different degrees at the same time to validate ourselves? What are the things we're doing that are creating life to be more stressful than what it should be, right? And then lastly,
Right.
self-acceptance. Sometimes we just got to acknowledge that for me. So listen, I know I'm a moody person. I guess I was born that way. I am a Gemini, all that stuff they say. But I realized that I'm a moody person. And so once I realized, Anita, you moody, but it's not other people's fault you moody, and you shouldn't make other people pay. I learned how to deal with my own moodies. If I'm not in the mood to deal with people, I don't deal with people outside of work. Okay. If I know that the day was hard and my kids don't want, I before I get home with my kids. And so some things we just got to accept. We are who we are, and be patient with ourselves, be patient with our process, have some grace and mercy for us. Like, how would you speak to a friend? How would you treat a friend who was going through what you were going through? Would you tell them to hurry up and get it together, or you shouldn't be feeling this
Right.
way, or you shouldn't be doing this? No. So how do we practice
Right.
loving kindness as we go through this thing called life, as we battle the things from our past, as we battle traumas, triggers, and whatever historical wounds we may be dealing with? How do we practice loving kindness towards ourselves? That is how we support
Right.
positive.
Yes. Okay,
Anything
Zenita,
before we
before I
go?
forget,
Yes.
yes, please, sis. Whoo, you said so much stuff, and I know we got the here. But what I want to tell, especially the women who are listening, women, we are nurturers. We try to fix it all. We try to do it all. And we wear a lot of hats. At the end of the day, we need to start prioritizing ourselves. Obviously, God is first, then your husband or your spouse. But we have to get a place where we prioritize ourselves. So for me, that means setting boundaries. I was always a people pleaser and hardly ever said no. But guess
Mm,
what? I can't get all my stuff done. Putting your stuff, ladies, be mindful of that. We need to do self-care. So self-care looks like, and I just told my sister this yesterday. I'm going to start making it a habit ritual to do my monthly mani pedi, to get me a massage. To yesterday, we went to the gym and we did the sauna, the pool, and the hot tub just to decompress. I want to go
yeah.
out on my back patio with a book and just relax. I want to go to the beach with my lawn chair and just take it all in. So we need to start putting ourselves first. We need to be careful about our circle and have around us that are just energy, they're leeches, they're energy suckers.
Mhm.
You need to keep that energy for more. Don't entertain negativity and negative and toxicity. You need to be in a circle of people that are like you, are spiritual, who can help pour into you and to
Yes.
help you be the better we need to build each other up. And so we need to just be mindful of the energy that is around us and protect our spirit. So I that's from up above. I just had to get that out. But we need to start putting ourselves first. And I want us to stop being ashamed, get help,
Yes.
stop suffering in silence. I don't understand why people do that. I have another family member who is suffering from anxiety, and they are ignoring it. It's been years for them to take care of that. Why are you suffering and going through this without getting treatment? And so we need to do better, y'all. We need to stop suffering in silence. We need to stop worrying about the stigmatism of having mental health issues. It is what it is. Face it head on and get the help you need so you can start healing, sis. Come on now.
Absolutely. Yes. Listen, you don't said a word and took us to church. Yes, absolutely. That is so true. Everything you said. And so even you spoke to
Come
the women, I
on.
was to the men. Men, your mental, emotional health is important too. The world is on your shoulders. I get it, especially if you're a man of color, but it is so important for
Yes,
you to
Lord.
value your mental health because listen, we need you well. We as women, we need you well. Your children need you well, and you need you well. It is okay to not be okay. I don't care if you have to talk to your barber or if you talk to your pastor or you talk to your brother, but your mental health matters as well. And so I am just so grateful for this conversation. The comments, Miss Carla Simpson said her therapist told her to hold her own hand like she would hold a friend. Amen to that. Yes.
Hmm.
Marlon said, amen. Evangelist Jones said, a village of believers is key. Yes, connect with those who can affirm your faith, who can tap into prayer when you don't have
Hmm.
to, who can intercede on your behalf.
Yes,
Yes,
Lord. Hmm.
we are supporting each other. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, the artist known as Lena said, thank God for the therapeutic community, but the blessing I am seeing on this podcast debut is that the village is coming out for support of both of you. Your church members and friends are showing up. Yes, I see you.
Oh,
You
thank
got your
you.
support on here, Miss Ortega.
Thank
Yes,
you, God.
absolutely. So
Yes.
hopefully,
Come on, y'all. Come on.
yes, and let's spread the word because the more we have candid conversations about this, the more we can normalize mental health, the more it does not have to be a thing of secrets and silence, the more we can impact other people and model this for children because our children are taking their lives. Suicide is increasing amongst adolescents. I deal with them every day. And so if they see their parents or whatever adult modeling good mental health,
Hmm.
then it becomes a good example for them. So because they only as healthy as we can be. I'm telling you, our children are only as healthy as we
Absolutely.
are. So it's important that we do
Amen.
well.
Amen.
Listen,
That's
I
right.
hope y'all
That's right.
tune in for next week. It was fun. Next week, we are going to talk about navigating life transitions because, life be transitioning, right? Life happens and transition happens, change happens, but there is an intentional process that we are supposed to go through in order to go through life changes effectively. And so we want to talk about navigating life
Hmm.
transitions. We will guest, J.R. McIntyre. His story is phenomenal. He is a man that has gone through many life changes. And so I can't wait to have this conversation next week. Tune in at 10 a.m. I know this week we're at 9. I have an event as soon as we hang up, but 10 a.m. next Saturday morning, tune into Mindful Over Matters, where we are discussing intentional living. All right. Great show. Thank y'all so much for showing up. And we will see you next week. Miss Ortega, listen, bless you. Continue
Zaneta,
the work.
thank you for reaching out. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Have a good weekend, everybody, and a safe
Bye,
Memorial
everybody.
Day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.